Mr. Squibbles is often sad. Today, he decided to talk to Mr. Bananas. "Hello, Mr. Bananas," said Mr. Squibbles. "Hello, Mr. Squibbles," said Mr. Bananas. "I am very sad. I think I need to talk to somebody. Will you talk to me, Mr. Bananas?" "No, I have more important things to do," said Mr. Bananas. Mr. Squibbles was rather sad. "Perhaps you should go talk to a professional psychiatrist," said Mr. Bananas. "Do you think he will listen to me?" said Mr. Squibbles. "Well, he might not want to, but he would if you gave him money." "Well, thank you, Mr. Bananas," said Mr. Squibbles. He decided to go to see the psychiatrist. The doctor was busy when he entered the office, so he decided he would go and take a seat on the couch. After he regained consciousness, Mr. Squibbles climbed onto the couch to wait for the doctor. As he sat there, he thought about the fact that maybe at last he would have somebody to talk to, somebody who could give him some kind of meaning in his life, somebody who would care and help him to deal with all the troubles that he had been having in his life recently, such as the desertions of his many friends. Mr. Squibbles couldn't wait to see who his new friend was. Finally, the doctor seemed finished with his work and decided that he was ready to see Mr. Squibbles. Mr. Squibbles held his breath to see who would be helping him through these hard times. "Hello," said Mr. Livingston. "My name is Dr. Livingston. I'll be helping you." "Oh, no," said Mr. Squibbles. But then he thought maybe Mr. Livingston was willing to be his friend now. "Hello, Doctor," said Mr. Squibbles. "What should I do now?" "Well," said Mr. Livingston, "since you're still alive, why don't you tell me what's been bothering you?" "Well," said Mr. Squibbles, "to start with, I'm always very sad. I feel like all my friends secretly hate me. Or maybe, not even secretly. Also, I think a part of me hates my mother. I think that she never really loved me. And I don't know why my dad was always gone from my house. Sometimes I just would sit and cry for hours in my room. And I'd think, why don't I have any friends? Why don't I have any friends? It was very hard. Do you think I have any friends, Mr. Livingston?" "I really doubt it," said Mr. Livingston. "After all, you do complain all the time." "Also," said Mr. Squibbles, "sometimes I feel like I'm kind of worthless. I feel like I'm dumb. I feel like nobody respects me. Sometimes I feel like I'm all alone, and the whole world is out to get me." "Well," said Mr. Livingston, "do you know what the capital of Cambodia is?" "I have no idea," said Mr. Squibbles. "Well," said Mr. Livingston, "I guess you are kind of dumb." "Boo-hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo," said Mr. Squibbles. "Here," said Mr. Livingston, "take these cards and tell me what the ink blots make you think of." "This looks like a knife," said Mr. Squibbles. I see," said Mr. Livingston. "This makes me think of a gun that I might use to shoot myself with," said Mr. Squibbles. "Excellent," said Mr. Livingston. "This looks to me like a noose," said Mr. Squibbles, "the kind I might use to hang myself from a rafter at the end of a very bad day." "That's a very beautiful story," said Mr. Livingston. "This makes me think of the sweet solace of the grave," said Mr. Squibbles. Perhaps you should go there one day, said Mr. Livingston. Maybe even one day soon. Mr. Livingston, said Mr. Squibbles, do you really think that there's any reason for me to go on living? Well, said Mr. Livingston, it looks like my time is about up. Do you have another $200? Well, no, I don't, said Mr. Squibbles. But could you just help me with this one thing, please? Mr. Squibbles came home, very sad and disheartened. Imagine his surprise to see Mr. Livingston at his house, but this time as friend, not as psychiatrist. Hello, Mr. Livingston, said Mr. Squibbles. Why, hello, said Mr. Livingston. I know that you won't be paid this time, since you're coming as a friend, but I feel like I want to kill myself. Could you help me out? Well, said Mr. Livingston, could you help me plug in my VCR? Mr. Squibbles looked at the plug. Remember, said Dr. Livingston, be careful when you plug it in. It may kill you. Mr. Squibbles hesitated a moment and took the plug out of the wall and inserted his hand. Oh no, said Mr. Livingston. My VCR!